This time let's make a draggable circle. The behavior is going to be similar to having a coin on top of the table, and we could put our finger on top of the coin and move it around. But in processing, we're going to be using the mouse and the clicking of the mouse. And we start here with a program which is 400 times 300 and the color mode HSB. And I want to have a random background color. So I'm going to type here background random 255, 150 and 255. And this is fine to use inside the setup. But we are going to be animating, and we know that when we animate, we have to call background here inside the draw function to erase the screen and then draw the updated objects. But if we generate here a random color each time, this is not going to look very comfortable. It's just blinking like crazy. So what I have to do is I'm going to use here a color variable, bg color. And what I will do is storing this background color in a variable. So bg color is color random 255, 150 and 255. And now I can use here that random color, always the same random color here and also inside our draw function. So now we have a random color each time, but it's a stable color. It's not blinking like there's no tomorrow. And we are going to be drawing an ellipse, and I don't want to have it always in the same place. So I'm going to use here some variables, x, y, and we could say this is going to be the size. So let's declare these three variables at the beginning of the program here. Int x, int y, int sz. We could give it some default values. For example, 100, 100, everything can be 100. So now if we run the program, there we have our circle. Let's remove the stroke, no stroke. And I'm going to activate the smooth mode as usual. So there we have a better looking circle now. Let's give the circle also a random color. So I'm gonna say here fill and random 255. This is gonna be darker, maybe 100 and 200. And let's see how it looks like. And there is our random color for the background and random color for the circle. Okay, great. Now we want to interact with the circle. We have to know if the mouse pointer is on top of the circle or not. We have seen in previous episode how we can do this. Let's refresh this idea here. So if here's our circle and here is our mouse pointer, this position here for the mouse is mouse X and mouse Y. And the center of the circle is at X, Y. And we want to calculate this distance here. The distance between these 2 points, the point which is at the center of the circle and the position of the mouse. In our program, we have the size of our circle, which is 100, which means that from one side of the circle to the other side of the circle, there is 100 pixels. From this side here to this other side. So you can see in this example, the mouse is obviously outside of the circle. At which point will be the mouse inside the circle? This will happen when we cross this line here. In this moment, when we cross, the distance from the center of the circle to the mouse will be half of the size. That means 50 pixels. So if the distance between the 2 points is less than 50, we are inside. So let's type that in our program. Here we are drawing, and here I'm going to say if the distance between X, Y and mouse X, mouse Y is less than SZ divided by 2. SZ is the diameter of the circle, and if we divide that by 2 is the radius, or half of the size. Okay, so then we know now here we are inside. And we can do something else if we are not inside. So one easy thing to do is to say that we will not have a stroke if we are outside, and if we are inside, we can have a stroke, a white color, for example. So now we can run the program and easily see if the mouse is inside. Let's use a new function called cursor. I'm going to search for it here, cursor. Okay, we have used before no cursor, but with cursor we can change how does the mouse pointer look like. And there's different options. We can use arrow, cross, hand, move, text, or weight. We could also use an image if we wanted to. But now let's just pick two of these. For example, we can use arrow and hand. So now we're not going to change only the stroke or no stroke of the circle when we are on top, but we are also going to change how the mouse pointer looks like. I'm going to type here cursor. This is the case when we are on top. So I'm going to say here hand. And in the other case, cursor, arrow. And this gives some feedback. You can now very easily see that this object should be clickable because the mouse is changing. That's the same effect we get when we are on a web page like this one. And when the mouse moves on top of a link, you can see that the cursor is changing. So this is what we are achieving now in our program. But I would like to have even more feedback. I would like that something changes when I click the circle. This is not happening now. You cannot notice that if I click or not because nothing changes in the picture. But I can check that here. I could say that if mouse pressed, so now I know here if the mouse is pressed or not. I can also type an else statement here. So I can change something depending on if the mouse is pressed or not. What could I change? Well, one easy thing to change is the width of the line. So I can say here stroke weight. And this is the case where the mouse is pressed. So I'm going to make this larger. I'm going to say here 5 pixels. And if the mouse is not pressed, I will say here stroke weight 2. So now it should be very easy to see if I'm clicking the circle or not. Now we can see here that when the mouse is over, the hand changes, it gets a border, the border disappears when I go out, and when I click, you can see very easily that the border is getting bigger. So there's only one thing missing in our little program here. I would like to be able to click and drag the circle to a new position. Now it's just staying here fixed. One easy way to do that is here in this line. We know that we are inside the circle because this means that the distance between the center of the circle and the mouse is small enough, so we are inside, and we know that the mouse is pressed. Here I could move the circle to wherever the mouse is. I can say that X is mouse X and Y is mouse Y. So I'm moving the center of the circle to whatever the mouse is, but only in that case, only if I'm inside the circle and if the mouse is pressed. So now I can click and drag the circle to a new position. It's not perfect because if I click here near the border, you can see that the circle jumps to the center. That's how we have programmed this behavior now. We are saying here that the center of the circle is equal to the mouse position. That's why it jumps. But it's good enough for our first draggable circle here. I suggest now you go and try to replace the circle with a square or a rectangle. See if you can come up with a way to have exactly the same behavior. How we can highlight the square when the mouse is on top, how it changes when we click, and if we click and move the mouse, then the rectangle is moved to a new position.